So how can we knock him as an MC the way that we have at moments, but give ode to guys like Future and Lil Baby and 21 Savage as MCs? That
What do you
question's
mean?
just been posed. That question's been posed in our chat and to me personally. It's like, yo, like y'all like you know, one of my homies like your boy Mike tripping. He calling Future 11 a legend, but saying M ain't got no bars really. You know what I'm
They're two
saying?
different things. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's like me sitting here saying that George Clinton and James Brown was just some incredible male vocalists. It's not what they're here for, but they made some incredible records, and they made some incredible impact with their approach to the records. Eminem, it's just a bunch of word salad. Now, did I sit here and say that Future's a better lyricist than Eminem? That's not what he's here to do.
But Mike, you enjoy a lot of that music, but you get on M's content. So like like what's the content that Future has that like? Because if I'm not mistaken, Mike, he talks about a lot of the same like rhetoric that M actually.
Well, he's never talked about killing any of his 8 baby mamas. That he's never done. Can you imagine? Let's
He's
just
a
keep it
pretty
real.
slick
Hold,
talker.
hold,
I'm
hold,
pretty
hold, hold,
certain
hold,
he's in
hold on, hold on,
fervent
hold on, hold
somewhere
on.
at some point
Can
though.
you imagine?
Very shady on the mic,
Close
Mike.
your
Yeah,
eyes and imagine if
very shady on the
a
mic.
black male MC was to go out there and make a song like Kim about his baby mama. Imagine if that happened. Imagine the outrage if Rakim was out here making a song about killing his child's mother. Imagine the outrage that if Nas were to do something like that.
No, I believe he made
Imagine the
mahogany instead,
outrage.
Mike. No, I believe he made mahogany instead.
But I'm just
You know
saying, no,
what
no,
I'm
no.
saying?
If there was let's just keep it real, all the way real. If there was a black rapper that went out there and was talking about the women in his life in that way, he would be the most woman hating black man out there. Oh, we gotta protect our women as we should. But for whatever reason, no one ever gives this guy any of that smoke. So no, content wise, they're not the same. Future said a lot of fucked up shit when it comes to just groupies and talking about, saying doing all types of substances and all that. But he's never went out there and said, and made a song depicting a story of him killing his child's mother in front of her face and acting like they're just playing hide and seek or some shit. No. So it's not the same.
Yo, you be wild.
I'm just keeping it real,
You
and,
do.
and I
You
guess
do.
people
You
don't
be
want to.
wild.
I guess
You
people
be
don't want to
wild.
go there, so I have to describe what I'm talking about. The fact that people make it seem like that content doesn't exist, you're being oblivious to what this man talks about in his records. Any other rapper who speaks in those ways, and if they said anything that was even close to that, they would get dropped from all their deals. They would get ridiculed. They would be asked to apologize. All that. This man's never been asked to apologize for anything. And they think that him sitting here holding hands with Elton John at a staged award performance is an apology for everything he's ever said. Come on, man. My thing is, man, if you're offended by the baby and whatever you think he said on stage, how can you sit there and listen to Eminem's material and not be offended?
Now, Mike, you said something when you said that, and I'm gonna ride with you on that.
If
You
it's
know,
about the words and it's not about who's saying it, you know what I'm saying? How can you sit here and hold one person up and the other person has to go out there on an apology tour?
so Mike, you want to know what? Can I kind of just circle this conversation back around to the music briefly, and then we can kind of move the Russ's album because I had this sincere thought after this dialogue in person and on our chat.
Mm-hmm.
Why have we absolved Dr. Dre from his lack of quality output?
As an artist or producer?
Mike, all the above. Is this not one of Dr. Dre's proteges? Don't
Oh, it
all of
is.
Dr. Dre's proteges, at least at some point, prove themselves to be great album makers without him? Snoop, Game, Ice Cube, 50, 50 kinda. 50 not really not a protege. 50 is more of a
Uh-uh.
Nas protege.
This is the thing with Dr. Dre, and I think we've talked about this in previous
Mm-mm.
episodes when we talk about him as a producer. My knock on Dre as a producer is the fact that he can only he can only do this magic when it comes to new artists. He doesn't have this magic with established artists.
No, Mike. Yes, he does. That's why I bought up 50 and Get Rich or Die Trying. Mike, 50 ran around with Nas and the Bravehearts.
Well, I mean, no,
Like
no,
that's
no, but
ninety
no, no,
six,
no, no,
ninety
no, no, no.
seven. When
I
does
hear you.
Get Rich or Die
It's
Trying come
it's
out?
similar, but it's not because when the Get Rich or Die Trying 50 is a new artist. He's not the same as the artist that was. You could hear the songs that were old that they left over. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He had a whole new image. You know what I mean? He had a whole new approach to the way that he was doing songs.
Mike, that's because they put him in the machine.
I
The
understand what you're saying.
video to In the Club is literally a visual aid of them putting him into the machine.
I agree
What
with
you
you
talking?
saying. No, no, no. And they said that. But I'm talking about people who already have careers, like what Kanye was able to do with Common, right? Was able to take an established career and take it to the next level without changing the whole artist. Not to
Mike,
mention Daytona. Where in Dr. Dre's career has he ever taken somebody on like when he took on Buster, when he took on Eve, when he took on Rakim, and we've seen the greatness that we see when he takes on a Snoop Dogg, or when he takes on a young NWA, or when he takes on a early Eminem, or when he takes on the Game. We haven't.
no, but that's what I'm saying, Mike, is that you speak to those projects not really being that great. Doesn't he have a part to play in that? Because everybody else has been his protege with him. I mean, just based on what
Oh,
you're,
you talking
Mike,
about the Eminem projects that have been great.
right.
Because he has been executive producer of at least three of those.
No, Mike, more than that. Like some of those like mid 2000s stuff like too. He got executive production credits on that. Like Mike, one of those albums, like I guess like one of the rehab albums, like after he got out of rehab and went through the pill thing and was talking about it. Like Dre did like 6 or 7 tracks on that album,
No,
and
you're
we
right.
never talk about the fact that album wasn't that good. Dre did like 6 or 7 records, and like everybody's like, oh, but he's Dr. Dre. But
No,
it's
you're
like,
right.
why are we on Eminem so hard about his albums? And because here's the thing, Mike, when we talk about him,
That's fair.
we bring up his album catalog. This is somebody that's had Mike. He's had Dr. Dre longer than anybody's ever
He
had
has.
Dr. Dre.
He has. No, that's real.
So we don't get to absolve Dr. Dre from his album catalog. He's had Dre the longest. So Dre's got a part to play in the fact when we talk in these conversations about rating him, and somebody like you doesn't just go to his lyrics, but it's like, well, the albums ain't that great either. That's
Yeah.
Dre. Some of that's
Ja
on Dre.
Williams says the Big Bang is slept on. I agree with that, and I'm glad he brought up the Big Bang. I think in
Big
a
Bang is slept
vacuum,
on.
I think in a vacuum, if we looked at the Big Bang and just listened to it track for track or whatever, like it's a really dope album. Now, let's put this in the scope of who Busta Rhymes is. Do you feel like that's really Busta Rhymes that we got from The Coming, ELE, and When Disaster Strikes? That
Well, I
sounds like Dr. Dre. You know what I'm saying? That album sounds like this is Dr. Dre's molding. What I love about other producers, and when you talk about the job of what a producer is supposed to do, you're able to make a person better at what they already do, as opposed to bringing them into what you do and making them basically fitting them into the factory. You know what I'm saying? This is like this is
no.
Dr. Dre's system is kind of like that Motown factory, where it's like I don't care if you're the Supremes, I don't care if you're the Temptations, I don't care if you're Stevie. Your stuff's gonna sound like what Motown sounds like. But we saw what happened when those people were able to spread their wings, and Berry Gordy let them do things outside of those constraints. You get what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
You
so
get an
it's
intervisions.
yeah, and you get an intervisions. Imagine if Stevie would have been continuously in that system, and that is my knock on Dr. Dre. But you're right, we really absolve Dr. Dre of all of those Eminem misses, and that's unfair. I will agree with that.
Yeah, so
He
we got
need
to
to
be
take
fair
those
and
L's
stop
too.
doing and stop doing that. And also, Mike, too, you made a very strong point, and I'm going to tell you something. I like the Big Bang, and the Big Bang is dope, and it's underrated. But you know what my real takeaway from the album was? This is why Rakim and Dr. Dre didn't work because you're not going to
Exactly.
get Rakim to do that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Point blank period. You know what I'm
Point
saying?
blank.
And
Period.
and see that's the only problem again, and it's a big problem really when you talk about a producer. Dr. Dre's not trying to meet artists in the middle. And that's why he loves working with new artists so much because, like you said, a Rakim is going to buck that and be like, nah, we're not doing that.
But
But
also too, but you want to know what too? Even and this is the weight of Dre. You got to understand, even somebody like Busta Rhymes kind of conforms to that. Like you have to be. I mean, Mike, this is what I say about how the firm is really better than people think. It's because it's the only time you see Dre meet an artist in the middle.
well, I mean, he didn't have a lot to stand on at that point. You know what I'm saying? He was
Right. So
transitioning. So this
right.
wasn't Dre at the height of his powers. He was in a transition period where
But
he had to
so
meet
so
these
so let's
stars in the middle.
so when you talk about like making stuff to fit an artist, well, when you listen to Phone Tap, an executive decision, it's like no, capable,
Yeah.
and that's the proof. It's very brief proof, but it is proof because Phone Tap and executive decision, like beat wise, are his only great beats that don't sound like his beats really.
Right.
Right.
Versus said, Mike, you're intellectual, but 50 wasn't a new artist. He was seasoned. I mean, you addressed that, and I
Very.
guess let me address that further. Yes, he was a seasoned artist, but he had conformed because the rest of the world hadn't heard 50 Cent in that manner that they were about to hear him. So Dre took him on as a new artist. You know what I'm saying? He might not have been technically new. We know that Can I Borrow a Dollar actually had a release date and, got shelved, whatever, whatever. Not Can I Borrow a Dollar. Is that what it was? Uh,
You think about the
the
Kendrick
Power of the
song,
Dollar. I'm sorry.
Power of
The
the Dog.
Power of the Dollar. It had a release date, had the Destiny Child
Oh, you think
single,
about
all
Common's
that.
album.
I get that. But what I'm saying is when he bought into that Aftermath system, Dre took him on or they took him in as a new artist, and you can't sit here and tell me that 50 Cent on Get Rich or Die Trying sounds like the 50 Cent of the Power of the Dollar. Doesn't.
Oh no, I mean, Michael. I mean,
That's
you know,
molding.
some of that has to do with the shooting. He just vocally wasn't the same guy.
Well, yeah, yeah,
But I get
obviously the
what you're
vocaling, but
saying.
I'm talking about the
Stylistically, he had
delivery.
changed too. Yeah,
Yeah,
stylistically is a change. Yeah.
yeah.
No, no, but Mike, but here's the thing though. Even when you say that, it's like, well, Dr. Dre now, does tracks for seasoned artists and has for quite some time. That kind of started with Nas on It Was Written. You know what I'm saying?
His classic material is with new artists, and he's always said that he
No,
likes
no,
working
no,
with new artists.
no, no,
And
no. It is Mike.
you
The
can
ice.
even hear like on 2001, right? When people are on there, and I think we talked about this before when we was talking about 2001. You could tell that he's coaching them to rap in a certain way on these tracks. There is space on those records. Just like there's space in the actual beats, you got rappers like they're rapping like clapping their hands, stomping their feet. Every now and then they put their mouth on me. Like they're not
Yeah.
rapping like that outside of rapping on 2001. Same thing with Corrupt on Explosive.
Okay, so Mike, but this is what I mean. Just like so Dre and Havoc are kind of similar in the sense that like most of the great stuff is actually like the stuff that's kept in house and in camp, Mike.
Yeah,
But that stuff is hard to beat though.
it is. Dre just got more of it. And, Dre has,
Dre has just had more prodigies,
yeah.
like figuratively and literally. Like he like Havoc had prodigy. Like Dre has had prodigy 4, 5, 6 times. He's had Cube. He's had the DLC. He's had Snoop. He's had M. He
But
had Nas and Rakim briefly.
the same
Like
thing of what you're
he
saying
had
about
game.
Rakim, while the Rakim thing didn't work, and us talking about the Big Bang, I think that's the same reason why him and Ice Cube never really worked together throughout Ice Cube's career when at the height of Ice Cube's career. It wasn't because they weren't cool. They mended that. Still didn't work together. I think that's why Tupac and Dre never could really work together. You know what I'm saying? Tupac had his way of doing things, and Dre wasn't with that. It's like Dre's not trying to meet artists in the middle. California Love was Dre's song. Tupac just got on it. They don't have any real songs together.
No, they don't. That's why I didn't bring him up in the artists that he dealt with because they really didn't make any records together like that.
And the fact that he, it's like My Way or the Highway type of. He's a. I know it's gonna be a crazy analogy, but he's kind of like a Mike D'Antoni or something.
No, no,
Like
Mike,
he's
he's
not
greater than Mike
trying to
D'Antoni.
meet
Mike, I
you in
was
the
actually
middle.
thinking, no, I was actually thinking he's more like a Phil Jackson or a Pat Riley or a Greg Popovich. And here's the thing. It's like, how about this, Mike? You remember that story? Let's take it to sports right quick. You remember the story about how like LeBron really came to Miami? It's when he sat down with Pat Riley and Pat Riley opened up a bag and laid his rings out on the table. It's like that's who Dr. Dre is really. It's like he can
Yeah.
sit down with anybody and be like, this is the championship ring from 1988, straight out of Compton.
No,
This
you're
is the
right. You're
championship
right.
ring from the Chronic. This is the championship ring from Doggy Style. This is the championship ring from the documentary Get Rich or Die Trying. Here's a couple of second place finishes, firm album. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
No,
Like
I
like
feel what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, and I
so
agree with you.
you gonna come down there and play in his system, and Mike. And
I
here's what,
agree with you when you're
if
talking
you play
about
in his system, you're
legacy.
gonna win. The Big Bang
No,
is still one of Buster's 5 best albums.
I agree. And I agree with you when it comes to legacy, but I'm talking about just stubbornness and the fact that I'm not going to bend. Because even with Pat Riley sat there and, he was like, look, we're going to let Eric Spoelstra coach this team. You know what I mean? Like, there was some bending going on. And there was some
Yeah,
bending when it comes to, like, Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson will play those psychological games, make you feel like you winning. You know what I'm saying? Tell Kobe to
that's
to
not
to make
bending, Mike. That's
sure.
playing Mike, that's
No,
not bending though. That's playing psychological games to make
it
people feel like
is.
they have
Dre
acquired more
doesn't.
authority and power than they really have.
Dre doesn't even do that.
No.
Dre's Mike D'Antoni. Like, listen, if I say we're running with seven, we're running with seven. You might not think it makes sense, but that's what we're doing.
No, that's what I'm saying. So look at LeBron. Like LeBron really left because he didn't want to run things the way Pat Riley ran the organization. That's why he really left at the end of the day. But Mike, while he was there, he got him a couple of championship rings.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. So
I mean, I put it this way, and Dre's resume is really, really tough to combat, but I don't think established artists that wouldn't be the first producer that they want to go sign on to, because there's
hey,
a
well,
good
Mike, you
chance
want to know what?
that
You want
you
to know
might
what,
not
Mike?
make it out.
Mike, I think we have the good fortune because of Kendrick Lamar. At some point, we're going to get to find that out and test that theory out, though. I believe.
If Kendrick Lamar ever makes another album. Speaking of which, Mary J. Blige actually dropping an album the
He's
week
so
before
shady.
the Super Bowl.
You know he dropping the album. He just popped back up. He's so shady.
I mean, I believe it when I see it, man. Like
Worse than me.
we're about to be in hip hop in 2022, and we're in an era where people are dropping album after album after album, collaborative album after album, and this man ain't dropped since 2017. At this point, I mean, it might not even happen. We need to start putting Kendrick Lamar on the Outkast detox list, because it might not even happen.
No. It's not that time yet. If we don't get something next year, it would be that time. If we don't get something next year, it would be that time.
I'm not holding my breath, man.
I got the Rakim gap is like the official Emcee gap, which was a 5-year gap. That's the official gap.
Which gap was that? You talking about from Eric B and Rakim to the solo stuff?
Yep, 92 to 97.
His group broke up, and if that's the gap that we're talking about, that's not a good litmus test. That means it's I don't want to say over, but the prominence of
Mike,
Kendrick Lamar is over.
Mike, when he left, he was the greatest MC of all time.
Yeah.
Rakim, that is.
In my opinion, he still is. But
Right.
I'm just saying he didn't return that in that same form.
No, Mike. Mike, I mean, how about this? Not in the same form, because the game had changed.
He's
Oh
always
my,
gonna be great. He's Rakim.
that's Mike. That's what I'm saying. Oh no, no, no. There. How about this? This is okay. So here's where I give you credit about the Eminem argument because Eminem doesn't even have this. When you listen to Rakim in 1997 and you hear "It's Been a Long Time," you hear "The Saga Begins." You hear New York. It's like no, 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 no. I see why people think that's the greatest MC of all time. There's evidence right here. 5 years. There's evidence in 1997 that he's the greatest MC of all time. Like he has records where it's like, no, 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 he's the best MC of all time. You know.
Well, all right. So what do people that you've talked to? Where do they think I'm unfair to Eminem at?
I mean, mostly when you talk about him lyrically and as an MC, I think it's his placement as an MC. I think can more coincide with the catalog thing, which is why I highlight Dr. Dre. I think it's the craft of MCing. And also, too, Mike, I mean, I'm just going to forge this question to you honestly. How many of Eminem's albums post the Eminem show have you really, like, honestly listened to end to end and given, like, a fair shake? Do you really go through and listen to M stuff?
I actually went and listened to Recovery, I think it was, and I was
That
like,
might be the one that has the 6 or 7 Dre tracks, if I'm
and
not
I was
mistaken.
like, you know what, this is actually some of the better stuff that he's made since I guess his prime. But I've listened to him.
Just no Marshall Mathers LP2. No.
I listened to that when it came out, man. I mean, man, it's just not. He dropped that Berserk shit. Like, come on, man. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, it's not good. Now, I understand what people want to say as far as like the craft of emceeing and all of that, but why are we holding him to different standards? Like, I was listening to the Papoose verse on Russ. I'm like, Papoose be spitting. Papoose is always spitting. But no one's sitting around here talking about Papooses top 5 because of some verse that they heard, like, you know what I'm saying, in a cipher.